Hey, Myles here at Tactical Hyve, and you may have noticed we're not at the range, so you might be surprised. It's a change of environment here. And we are actually in a garage, and this is not just any garage. This is a world-famous garage in the self-defense realm. And the reason why we're here is we always talk about protecting yourself and your family, and we do a lot of firearms training. But self-defense should be much more holistic. It's not just about a gun. And we've also talked about how sometimes getting that gun into the fight isn't as easy as many people think. So we're changing gears, and we're going to be releasing a number of videos on overall self-defense, different aspects of it. So we're going to be filming a series of self-defense videos that are really going to highlight different myths and just kind of share different things that will make you more prepared holistically to protect yourself and your family. So you might be wondering, who's the owner of this world-famous garage gym? Well, let me introduce you to world-famous self-defense expert, Tony Blauer.
Myles, thank you.
So thanks, Tony, for inviting us to your garage gym. This is an honor, and I've seen this garage gym. I know you've been in the scene for a long time, so I'm really looking forward to this talk. And for our viewers, we're going to be talking about a very important topic, and that's what's missing in self-defense. And there's no one better than Tony to be talking about that with all of his experience. So Tony, before we dive into the topic, could you give our viewers a background, some background on yourself and your experience?
Sure. How long do we have? I make that joke because literally I've been studying violence and aggression for 43 years. I started teaching professionally in 1980. I actually started teaching in 1977. When were you born?
79.
Right? So just for some perspective
context there, yeah.
and some context, it's like, holy moly. And that's how long I've been teaching. Doesn't include when I started martial arts. Mm-hmm. I started wrestling when I was 7. I started Taekwondo when I was 12. Boxing when I was 16. Of course, heavily influenced by Bruce Lee, like everyone. Mm-hmm. But of course, you're a Bruce Lee junkie, and I mean, anyone martial arts. But like, I started my self-defense journey like when he died in 73. Like everything blew up there as far as martial arts. And but I noticed immediately, and this is a kind of an interesting origin story. I got jumped when I was 12 by 2 guys. Mm-hmm. And I was in really good shape. I was an all-around athlete. And it was funny. I was coming home from like a pickup baseball game at the school on a Sunday. And I'm kind of like, on my way home, running like 12-year-old little nerd. And I see these 2 older kids walking by this, on the sidewalk. And they see me and they wave to me. And I'm like, oh my God, like older kids want to talk to me, right? And so I run over to the ambush. They go, like, I don't know. They go, hey kid, you go to school here? They go, yeah, it's my last year, but I'm going to high school next year. Well, welcome to high school.
Oh gosh.
And I'm like, oh, thank you. And they go to shake my hand. The guy grabs me, spins me full Nelson. And the other guy, remember when Sugar Ray hit Duran with the bolo punch?
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, here's this bolo punch coming. And I'm like, what? And I'm getting, I'm wrenching, trying to get out of this. I've been wrestling competitively, gymnastics, tennis, skiing, so I'm in really good shape, but I've never been in a fight. Uh-huh. And so there I am. You can imagine how taut my body was, right? You've done MMA, body impact training is. Uh-huh. Like you're there against the ropes and guys are hitting you, getting conditioned. So I'm in the tightest position I can be. But I don't know this. I'm 12 years old. I think I'm going to die. As the punch comes in and hits me, I scream, thinking, this is it, I'm done.
Yeah.
And just, again, I don't know if anyone watching this remembers, when you're 12 versus like a 15 or 16-year-old, there's a huge difference in psychological strength and physical size at that point. So as I scream, I felt, and this is the coolest thing, Myles, I felt the guy's grip on my arms change, as if intuitively I felt like he was concerned he hurt me. Mm-hmm. And without even thinking about this, I screamed again and he let go. Uh-huh. So I was like feigning pain to manipulate his behavior. But I'm 12 years old. I don't know why I know to do this. Yeah. He lets me go down. I fall to the ground. I'm on the ground heaving, like just acting, going, and I'm kind of watching them, and they look at each other and they run. And as soon as they're out of like range, they turn the corner. I stop the whole act. I get up, I fix my shirt. There's not a mark on me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? I go home and I say to my dad, like, 2 guys just beat me up. And I think I might be imagining this, but I think he said, was it a pillow fight? Because I had like no marks on me. But I was so scared to go to high school that what I did is I said, I can't go to high. You got to learn how to fight.
Got it.
And that's what started me in self-defense. This is an interesting origin story because when I look at most, and I've been around the world's best martial artists, competitively, traditional combat sports, all this stuff over the decades, my focus was always about managing fear and not being that scared or vulnerable in a fight. So even whenever I went somewhere, there was almost a filter in my mind going, this wouldn't work, this couldn't have worked there. And it just gave me almost a different lens when I would study stuff. That fight story, interestingly enough, I fell in love with Taekwondo. I got pretty good at Taekwondo. Then I discovered boxing because of another fight that I almost got my ass kicked in. I realized I got good legs, but I got no hands. Started boxing. I fell in love with boxing. And then one day I got asked to teach. And it was 1980. I got asked to teach. And the kid was having a bully situation in school. And so all of this like intuitive scenario, well, what's he doing? What's he saying? What are you feeling here? And it was almost like a vicarious experience for me teaching me when I was 12, like the things I wish I had learned. And that was kind of like our evolution in only focusing on behaviorally based holistic self-defense. Yeah. So,
and yeah, that's something that you'll learn about Tony. If you're just learning about Tony now, and if you do a little research, he has a very unique approach to self-defense, which is why we're here. Again, at Tactical Hyve, we want to bring you guys who are the real deal. And again, Tony has been at how long now? So
43 years.
3 years, yeah, 43 years. And let
me interrupt something here, just because you just made me think. Just for people who don't know my background, I'm not offended. I'm a little sad, but the from 1980 to 1992. I taught every single class. We're open 7 days a week, thousands of people at my school in Montreal. And I developed a drill called the panic attack. And it was, back then it was a cool name. Now, like, everyone's having panic attacks, so it's not a cool name. But back then it was cool because it was like, it was Fight Club before Fight Club. We would get together once a month and beat the shit out of each other and record on, do you even know what VHS is? Yes. Have you heard of it? Okay, yes. I don't know. Right? But some of you watching there, like, going, what's VHS? Google that, like, But we were doing, like, getting together, signing waivers, and I would do things like, hey, man, what's the scariest thing that you think could happen to you in the street? And you might say, 2 guys, one of them's got a knife. And we do these, like, this drill, and the culmination exercises were scenarios. We didn't have our high gear suit, which I developed. We didn't have any, it was like Frankenstein, like this hockey gauntlets. I was from Canada, right? Taekwondo chest guard, hockey helmet. And we would just put stuff on Frankenstein-like. And, I go, okay, next up, Myles. And you get up and I go, okay, stand over there. And then a scenario would start to be 2 guys with a knife. And you'd look over at me like, you motherfucker, that's why you interviewed me. So we would create emotional, psychological duress as opposed to tap gloves, boom, let's go. Sparring could be, thanks for leaving me hanging there with the tapping gloves, right? But this was so huge because if I say to you, you're experienced martial artist, what would you do if a guy had a knife? You'll give me an answer. What would you do if a guy had a gun? You give me an answer. What would you do if 2 guys? Give me an answer. But all of these answers are theoretical. You're imagining a future event that hasn't happened, and you're basing your answer on things you practice and believe to be true.
Yeah.
That's just not the way the universe works. That's the way we answer multiple choice questions. But if you look at like the truth of all violence is captured on CCTV. When you look at cops, military, doormen, bodyguards, people who actually train, and you watch sudden violence, none of them look cool. And for the most part, none of them are doing any martial arts. They're not. You don't see somebody going, look at, oh, wow, he just hit him with a round kick. And somebody, here's the neat thing is, you will find what I call unicorn events, right? Where someone does a round kick to the face. Somebody does hit a guy with a left hook or an uppercut.
Successfully.
And someone goes, look. And people always send it to me because they think for some reason I don't love martial arts, and I do. Everything I have, emotionally, psychologically, intellectually, materialistically, is because of my love of martial arts. So when I critique, not criticize, when I critique something, it's because I'm trying to enhance your survivability. I'm not putting down whatever the martial art is. But people send me stuff, go, look, boxing works.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, last year there were like 113,000 assaults. You found one videotape where a former pro boxer knocked out a drunk asshole. Right? So,
it's an exception.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't mean I love boxing. I have bags over there. I'm 63 years old now. I still can hit. I love boxing. I've also broken my hands, broken my thumb knuckles, sprained my hands because of boxing, right? So, I'm just trying to share what I've discovered over decades. And why I interrupted you before is I want your audience to know that for 10 years, I did like Fight Club type things and figured out the relationship between fear and performance in a big way. And we were doing multiple assailant stuff. We were doing weapon stuff. And we went like none of the stuff we thought would worked when we didn't know what the attack was going to be.
Got it.
We could say, hey, let's do some stick sparring, some nice sparring. You stand there, you warm up. We call this ACP, awareness, consent, and preparation. You don't have that in the street.
Yeah.
If you knew you were going to get attacked in the next corner, you wouldn't drive in that direction or walk in that direction.
That's right.
So the surprise attack does things. It hijacks executive function, which changes your access to your cognitive brain, which is where you keep all your complex motor skills. If we're talking, I'm going to back fist Tony with my right back fist in the face right now. Like, you're visualizing all that. But if I do something that makes you go, right? Yeah. You can't access that information. Yeah. So this is really what the SPEAR system is all about. And what I wanted to tell your audience is, in 1993, while I had developed our Hyve suit, which is a force-on-force training suit, I use the word earned on purpose, an opportunity to do a demo to Naval Special Warfare, actually out here. I was living in Canada at the time, so I was down in Coronado at the Advanced Combat Training Group. And I ended up doing a demo that turned into an invitation to come back and do more stuff the next day. And it's a fascinating story. I'll tell you one day. But I wrote about it in my Substack article. I'll get you the link to it. It's amazing. Because it earned a level of trust. They became my first client that actually funded the prototype. From prototype to the first run was from the Navy. But suddenly I was doing stuff for the military, and they're talking about this stuff. And next thing I know, it's 1993, and I go, I got to close my school because I'm getting calls from all over the place. And now I'm doing full-time law enforcement in the military. And I did that for decades. And so, because your audience demographic is really, would I be correct in saying like gun biased?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So as people discovered, hey, if you can't weaponize the startle flinch, you got a problem. If you can't manage your fear, you got a problem. It's got nothing to do with whether you're doing jiu-jitsu, Krav, Thai, generic MMA approach or anything. You need to control the mind, and you need to control the physiology, kinesiology. And so we started getting into, we were doing stuff on the neuroscience side that wasn't even neuroscience yet, like signal speed, myelinization of neurons. All this stuff was, I wasn't using that language, obviously, but I would say, hey, I can teach you how to do this in a matter of hours. You don't need 10 years. We just need to put you in that razor's edge pressure and show you how to use and access primal gross motor movement. That evolved into literally live fire courses for certain, elements within the military, to lone operator courses. So we've over the years, people said, can you do something? Can you create something here for an extreme close quarter gunfight? And I was like, yeah, because it's the same protocol. You've got to manage the fear, and then you've got to recalibrate the mind. And there's a way, it's almost like Pavlovian conditioning. There's a way that you replicate the drill that forces a synthetic startle flinch in training. And you realize that, you know, if we're here right now, we're both concealed carry, and also we realize the fight is on. If we both draw and do that, well, whoever practiced that more is probably going to dominate that. But there's ACP, awareness, concept, preparation. We go, let's go do this drill and let's see who's faster. Or let's go knife versus gun and let's see who's faster. The problem with that is we know that the drill's about to happen. So you can trick yourself into believing a certain thing where really the missing ingredient, I don't know if you know the name Robert Willis. He's a very famous cop. So Bob Willis, he saw me teaching in 95. And he comes up to me after, he said, you teach the 3 seconds before the fight that everyone else teaches.
Yes, that's actually something I was going to mention to our viewers. And sorry to cut you off there.
No.
I did want to mention already there that you can already tell just from hearing Tony talk, he has a lot of experience. He goes way back. And I can already sense the passion. This is something that I have a knack for. Like I can tell when someone's truly an expert because there's just so many ways they can go, and they can talk about every little thing. So I really appreciate it. And there's 2 things I was going to mention that Tony already brought up just to add to why we are here today. The first one is that Tony's been doing scenario training forever. And he already talked about how he created this suit. It's called the Hyve gear suit. Yes, and it's a great suit. You guys should check it out. We'll leave a link in the description below. But it's not theoretical. That's what I was trying to get. It's a lot of people who teach self-defense, which again, it's kind of the topic of the video where we're going to be talking about what's missing. And he's already been doing this, testing things out. Second, he is not someone who's just been teaching civilians. He's taken everything he's learned, his experience, his teachings, and taught LE and military, and continues to teach major organizations today. So what you're going to hear from Tony really is proven and tested. So again, it's a treat to have him here. Was there anything else, Tony, regarding back before I get to
probably? But there's a lot. It'll come out. At the end of the day, I kind of looked at stuff almost like an archaeologist. I was just digging. I was just like, what about this? What about this? I remember doing some training with the guys in the Navy, and they had asked me for a concept, for a problem, and we're messing around. Then one of the guys says, hey, I wonder if this will work with our body armor on. And I said, well, let's not wonder. Let's put it on.
That's right.
And then the move didn't work. And I was like, well, now we know, right? Like carjacking, bar fight, you might be able to pull this off, but you're in full kit. Like,
let's not hypothesize this.
You don't want to do. So we're really about like, when and where does this work? There was one time they said, hey, we've been experimenting with a way to flex tie somebody. Do you think you could get out of this? So I get on the ground, they put me in this horrible position. And it took me like 3 minutes to get out of this. And they're like, I'm pinned. It took me like 3 minutes of messing around. And they're like, holy shit, how did you? I said, well, number one, because they were like amazed that I came up with something. I said, don't be amazed, because you gave me 3 minutes. If I was a real bad guy, you wouldn't stand around going, what's he doing? Like he's trying to escape. I said, but now that you know this is the Achilles heel in this position, now you can stuff it, because you can get ahead of it, right? So one thing that we always talk about is this idea that in an ambush, action is always faster than reaction, and in an ambush, the bad guy is always action.
Yes.
So if you think about conventional martial arts, how do you get out of a headlock? How do you do a gun disarm? How do you stop a tackle? What do you do if a guy throws a punch at you? What people are actually doing is practicing the counter to every attack. Think about how many years you're doing martial arts. Long time. Think about your whole life, whatever system you studied, the presentation was, let's say you're here and this happens. Well, you know the 10,000 hour metaphor?
Yeah.
Right? And it's a metaphor. Malcolm Gladwell made it famous, 10,000 hours, but it's based on a European researcher named Erickson. And a lot of it is misunderstood. And I like to just paraphrase and say, if you do something 10,000 times, you're going to get pretty fucking good at it. Be careful when you practice. You might get good at the wrong thing, though. And that expression confuses a lot of people because they think I'm criticizing with their style. I'm saying, be careful when you practice, you might get really good at the wrong thing because of neuroscience. You are training your brain to wait and think. So if I say to you, let's do it. Have you done gun disarms? Hmm? How does every gun disarm start?
Well, obviously.
Somebody takes a gun and sticks it in your face. So let's say you've done that 10,000 times and you go and you do whatever your counter is. You've done 10,001 reps of letting somebody stick a gun in your face. And every time you do that, to start the drill, because we're all excited about doing the physical drill. I've done this in classes, and we're going to come back to the gun stuff because you guys are gun people, is I've been in a room of like 100 trainers, and I said, who knows how to get out of a headlock? And everyone puts their hand up. And we could do it right here, though. You would probably, let's try this. You know how to get out of a headlock?
Yeah, different.
Of course. Mm-hmm. So I'll put you in a headlock, and let's just do the demo.
Charles, we're good? Okay.
We don't need a chair. You can just do it here. Okay? I'm putting you in the headlock.
Okay.
There we go. He did it perfectly.
Okay.
That was it. That was the demo. Look what he's doing. Without me attacking you, your Pavlovian nervous system, I love that you did that. You went like this 3 times.
Yeah.
Right? And it's almost like, do you guys get how funny that is?
Yeah.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
You have no metacognitive, neuroscience, metacognitive awareness of the exact pre-contact cues of somebody putting you in a headlock. Mm-hmm. Because you've done 10,000 reps of
head down from that position.
Right?
Yep.
And head comes on, you get ready, go. Take the guy down, mounts him.
Yeah.
Right? And it could be, you could go, yeah, but I'd pull out a gun or I'd pull out my Spyderco knife. It's the same thing. If you want to get good at self-defense, how important is situational awareness in self-defense?
It's good, but it only works when you're aware.
Right? So, but the reality is if you have no awareness, you have no chance.
Yes. Yep.
Right? Situational awareness is a conscious cognitive skill. If I get really boring and you nod off while we're talking, I'm going to hit you, right? And you will never block it. You're not going to do any wax on, wax off because you're asleep. So your situational awareness is a conscious cognitive skill. What if part of situational awareness is connected to self-awareness? What if self-awareness decodes the situational awareness and then you go, I'm too scared to do anything. I've never thought about the psychology of fear. How many victims of violence said, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what to do. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't run. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't fight. I'll tell you, every single one of them. Every person I've interviewed and every report I've ever read over the years for victims of violence who lived to tell the tale, they all said, I knew something was wrong. So the body's intuitive radar system goes, something's up here. Mm-hmm. But they can't connect it to any training. What if you go, man, I think that guy's carrying a gun. He's printing on his shirt. Oh, shit. Something. But you don't know anything about guns.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about the difference between a revolver and a semi-automatic. You can't tell like a BB gun from a real gun. You can't notice it. I had a student of mine, he was in a bank robbery, calls me up, he goes, Coach, I was just in a bank robbery. And I immediately said, were you a spectator or were you a participant? He goes, what? I go, just fucking with you, man. He goes, I goes, no, I was in the robbery. And he goes, I was so calm. I can't tell you how much the training helped. I was ready to do this, I was like cooperating. Obviously there were multiple people, they had guns cooperating, but I'm looking for escape routes, improvised weapons. I'm looking, if this guy starts shooting, I'm going here, I was so calm. Afterwards, I was like shaking, but I was so calm during. I said, well, I said to the guy, did he have a semi-automatic or revolver? He goes, oh, I don't know. I said, well, in your next bank robbery, ID the gun. So I'm making fun, but there are things you can learn. I call this all pre-fight. Uh-huh. So that's really one of the things missing in self-defense is nobody's talking about pre-fight. Nobody's talking about the emotional, psychological impact sudden violence can have on you emotionally, psychologically.
Yeah.
If you're not ready to fight, then it doesn't matter that you trained for 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And that's, there's so much that was unpacked. And we're going to circle back. And just as I mentioned, this is going to be a video series, guys. We're going to have lots of videos because as you can already tell, there's a lot of missing pieces. Already, Tony has specifically mentioned the pre-fight, which just kind of a quick aside. I've known about Tony's system since I was much younger. And I've always thought about it as it's something that needs to be added to traditional training. And you'll learn more about a system. We might not go too in depth in this video, but you'll learn why. I truly believe that. And it's kind of that missing piece, that pre-fight. So I think this would be a good segue into kind of this topic, which is directly related to what's missing in self-defense. I think it may start off with martial arts versus self-defense. How would you define or kind of address just that topic heading, martial arts versus self-defense? Is there a difference?
100%. So if I said to you, what's the difference between like IPSC and CQB?
Yeah.
Right. So everyone get that? You're all shooters, right? IPSC and CQB. You can get really good at IPSC and then get annihilated in a paintball match with some people that just understand moving through rooms.
Yeah.
You can be really good at flag football, and then you go to play tackle football with some friends, and you see a couple of guys get hit, or you hear some footsteps, as Vince Lombardi used to tell people, right? And now suddenly you're like, like you don't have access to the skills you had access to the day before. Something I learned, I'm off on a mini tangent here, something I realized in the mid 80s when I started really refining the science and psychology of scenario-based training. And I say that it's the scenario training is an art and a science. It's not, I've seen people do scenario training, and what they've done is created the idea of a scenario to showcase their martial art. That's not scenario training. Scenario training is if we did something, I go, and I saw you trying to muscle it, try to game it. I go, Myles, just go through the scenario, and then we'll do an after action. Were you scared? Did you have trouble breathing? Did you find at this part here you had no stamina or endurance? Oh, over here you had no idea what to do when they confronted you with this verbal stuff? Well, that's part of a choice speech de-escalation strategy. Most people don't practice what we call, we break down violence into 3 Ds: detect, diffuse, defend. Detect and avoid, that's all situational awareness training. Defuse and de-escalate, because you need to morally, ethically, legally diffuse situations, and force must always parallel danger. And then if push comes to shove, defend. And when you break it down like that, you have a very logical, interconnected chronology of the timeline of violence and how shit happens. Most martial arts practice how to get over a headlock. Guy's got a gun here. Someone throws a punch. 2 guys are here. And I call this the Star Trek model of self-defense training. And it's not meant to be disrespectful. It's meant that, like, one of the cool things about Star Trek, and I wasn't like a nerd Star Trek, but one of the cool things about it was you could beam down anywhere, right? And you've watched a couple, right? So I would say, what if a guy's got me like this? And I go, how did he get there? Did he beam down there? I used to say this for decades. And then when I started to refine the presentation, I'd say, is this like the Star Trek? He beamed down there. There you were. You had just finished a hard workout. You were like, and then suddenly you were in headlock. Because you're in that position, right? It's like, how did he get there? And I would say to people, like, what happened before, what happened before, what happened? And we created this whole, and that became all the pre-fight arsenal. And then there was in-fight, and that's the verbal, the self-talk. Oh, shit. Oh, fuck, this is going to happen here. Watch this. Where's an escape route? Do I have an improvised weapon? Is this a shoot, no shoot? Whatever it is, there's always chatter going on. And you need to think about this stuff. And you can stress inoculate by doing scenarios, but coming back full circle, if you're trying to muscle the scenario, and that's another word for win it, I tell you, don't try to win. What am I supposed to do here? Just go through it. Don't hurt my role player, and he's not going to hurt you. We're just going to, or I should say, don't injure my role player. We have a whole role playing course that we've taught, like the highest level, tier 1 operators, and it's real simple. Don't be a bad guy, and don't be a bad good guy. And they go, what the hell does that mean? It's like Ernie and Bert from Sesame Street came up with this, like, just be a good bad guy. What does that mean? That means now that, because you know what's happening, I can, and I've seen this at the highest level when I would come in and first consult and then come back and go, here's what I think we should do. I was never like off the shelf with any of this stuff. Guys, here's the thing. I don't need to know what you're doing. I have the answer. It was always, let me watch you train. What are your questions? What's your Murphy moments? What are you worried about? And then I would co-create a course based on that feedback. But I would look sometimes and see guys doing this, like all the role players are here. They go, okay, Myles is number 1 in the stack. You move over there. Remember, he knows jiu-jitsu, so we got to get him to.
I know what you're talking about.
And I would watch this and I go, first of all, you don't have that luxury in a real fight. But second of all, you're impacting this guy's competence because you're affecting his confidence because you're gaming scenario training. I've had students, after doing a scenario with me, look up on the ground, some of them tears in their eyes, sweaty, panicky, and say, hey, coach, did you let me hit you there? And I knew, I got goosebumps right now. I knew, and I would tell all the people that I mentor and coach, if your student isn't sure whether you let them hit you, you did it right. Mm-hmm. Coach, did you let me hit you there? I go, why would I let you hit me? I don't know, just like you saw a target, you took it open, you were scared, you did it right, good for you. They'll go, yeah, but so did I get in on you? Don't confuse getting in a real fight with me with scenario training, right? But if I've seen like the most horrific scenario training where people are like, give me your purse, and it's like there's no energy. That's being a bad guy, leaving a target open. A female hits them, the guy falls down, he's unconscious from one shit shot. Mm-hmm. You ever seen, you see this because you follow the same people I follow, like clips of like courageous bystanders intervening, like hitting, this is always in South American stuff, like trying to drive people over on bikes who just robbed somebody, right? There's one going viral right now. Hits the guy in the bike, the guy goes flying, going, oh man, that fucked that guy up. The guy gets up, tries to get away, the guy smashes him again with the car. The guy smashes again with the car, and the guy still gets on his bike and ride. I don't care how good a martial artist you are, your knee and sidekick isn't as hard as this guy's Toyota driving into you while you're on your motorcycle. So what? You know where I'm going? I know I'm on a tear, on a rant here. The human body is way more resilient. We need to teach people how to think through these situations and not tell people, well, when you do this, he'll go, and then when you do this, I used to teach, and you probably heard this, in my 20s, I would teach in my self-defense. I go, listen, knee to the balls, kick to the balls. Because if you grow up in martial arts, you're told kick to the balls, kick to the balls. And each one of us, right? We've had one of our nuts flick and gone, oh, fuck, right? I had a cop in one of my classes come up to me after the class. He said, hey, I don't want to say this in front of everybody because out of respect to you, but getting kicked in the balls doesn't stop you from fighting. Fucking hurts, but it doesn't stop. And I was like, really? Like, how would you know that unless you knew that?
Yeah.
Did you ever teach people to kick people in the balls for self-defense?
Yeah,
Right?
but it would never be like the end game.
But we always taught it, and if you learned it in the 70s,
That was the thing.
it was different than in the 90s. Like in the 70s, people didn't come to school with a gun and shoot people. In the 70s, we were afraid. Literally, we were all afraid of a guy who allegedly kicked someone in the balls once. Mm-hmm. Like, that guy once sucker punched. Like, there was things were very, very different. But my point being is, this guy, there's certain things that, like, okay, class, everyone, let's kick each other in the balls and see what happens. And then, like, you're not going to do certain things, right? So this cop says,
no, we might want to take it to the next
right?
level.
There's some weird, McDojo would love some of the, right? So this cop says this to me. He says, like, I was arresting this guy, and he said, I'm going to kill you. And then we started wrestling, and then he fucking kneed me in the nuts, but he already told me he's going to kill me. And I knew, I started to do this, and he went for my gun, and I realized he's going to kill me. And I kept fighting. And I was able to finally dominate him and put him in cuffs. But I mean, that was mind-boggling. I didn't realize it. He says, because like you, someone had said, kick people in the balls. Mm-hmm. And our experience, guys' experience of getting a flick in the nuts accidentally, and this is the ACP, awareness, consent, preparation. When you turn around, I have 6 dogs. Mm-hmm. One of them is a Great Dane, and his tail, it's like a freaking like iron whip from Kung Fu. And it's right at my groin height, right? I'll be coming with some groceries, I'll put something here, his tail goes, whack, flicks me in the nuts. And I have a high threshold for pain. I'm like, whack, and I'm like, whack, right? Because it's a surprise attack. Mm-hmm. And the nervous system goes. I can stand up right away, but your body reacts to it. This story is very important for every guy listening to this. Because when he said it to me, I said, how do you practice that? You just got to believe certain things. And later that week, one of my prodigy students, his kid Steve, he was over at my house, and we would do like the old Kato Pink Panther shit. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the old movies where they'd attack each other? Kato would jump out and attack Clouseau. And I'm there, I open the fridge, I go, you want anything? And he whips a back fist at me, and I flinch back here, and I throw a kick at him, and he jumps back. And we're wearing like jeans and running shoes. And he comes at me, he comes forward with like a front kick to me as I land from my kick. And we realize in that moment that the proximity's off, and he's gonna nail me. And he's like full speed, ripping this kick. And I'm like, shit. And I see his eyes there, and it just drills me like friggin' Stan Smith, Adidas tennis shoes, right in the nuts with a pair of jeans. And it was like last week, this cop said to me, "This, you can keep fighting through this." And I'm like, you, the god of war, fuck you, man. I didn't ask for this lesson. But I went, holy shit, here we go. Hits me. Everything goes into tachypsyche, that slow motion effect. And as that foot is coming out of my groin, I'm like, okay, am I going to go and do what I always do? You know, and like even pro fighters do that. They get hit in the nuts. Yeah. They grab that. Yeah. The referee goes, 5 minutes, get over it, keep them up. Like there's still that Pavlovian response. Mm-hmm. And they even do it when it doesn't even hit direct, right? So I'm here like this hits me, and I hear the cop's voice in my head. Steve's like, sorry, in slow motion. And I'm right here, just nailed it. And I step in, I grab him by the throat, sweep him on the ground. He's going down in slow motion going, sorry, you know, like Larry David, sorry. Like, and I'm like, my hands on his throat, slam him on the ground, pin him, load this. And I'm going, all the while I'm doing this and going, my balls don't hurt, my balls don't hurt, my balls don't hurt. And then he's like, no, it was an accident. And I realized I could have, I didn't feel. And as soon as I stopped, it was like a midget with a blowtorch went, and I was like, you know, and doubled over. So lesson for all of you, we are so much more resilient. And I always tell people that I coach, do not, if somebody tells you something, you go, wow, that's kind of scary advice or knowledge. Like, get rid of it. Don't memorize shit that's going to encumber your survivability. Yeah. There's like, you've heard this, and if you don't take care of things in the first 3 seconds, complete bullshit. Mm-hmm. There's lots of confrontations go longer than 3 seconds.
So you would agree then that there is a difference between martial arts and self-defense. So are you saying then, to clarify for our viewers, that there is a distinction between practicing combat sports, where people are either jiu-jitsu, MMA, and actual violent encounters?
100%. So the first thing, I'll try to keep this succinct, as you identified or observed early, I get insanely passionate, and then as suddenly I'm gone. First of all, if you understand how humans learn, it used to be you were a disciple and somebody taught you. You ever read the book The Wandering Taoist?
No.
Okay, so there's a story about a grandfather teaching his grandson kung fu. Mm-hmm. And but at some point, somebody figured out that learning kung fu, learning judo, learning aikido, learning stuff was really good. Community, social, movement, health, some self-defense application, purported self-defense application. But now we had 50 people in a class, it wasn't like a one-to-one transmission. Mm. And that is called block-based training, where you're imitating movements, okay? You enter the dragon, right? Everyone on the field there doing reverse punches. None of those guys could fight, but they all thought they could fight. They all thought, now here's what I would do is I would go, show me somebody in a horse stance doing a reverse punch in a real violent encounter, and then we'll include that in the training. But there's zero evidence of that. We're not going to include that. So that's really kind of almost the filter. It doesn't mean martial arts are bullshit. There's a ton of value. Yeah. But the danger is you get good at martial arts thinking that you can just transfer it to the street. Mm-hmm. So the first aspect is the way I teach scenario-based training is called brain-based. Mm-hmm. It's Socratic. Why are we doing this? Why do you think this would work? Why do you think it wouldn't work? Let's get there. Because if you don't see it and believe it, that changes your retention of it, how you absorb the information. Mm-hmm. So doing stuff over and over again, just doing the physical stuff, is called block-based training, and we're just doing
like the traditional martial arts.
Yeah, no, you can't get your green belt. That's a green belt move. You got to go through this level here. Yeah. Hey, but I was watching this on the video. Not yet. You got to go through here, right? So it's when you're really exploring self-defense, and I've been on the range with really experienced fighters who've been in gunfights and stuff like that. And I go, why wouldn't you do this? No. When you come through the door here, this is what we do. And I'm going, that's not what I'm doing. But this guy's an operator. I'm just a guy, and my intuition is saying that's not what I'm doing. Who's right? Who's wrong? Well, like depending on what you think in terms of how you self-discriminate, language and ideas. Do you weigh and consider stuff? Do you understand the difference between instincts, intuition, intelligence? Can you critically think? Some will go, well, this guy's in the military and he's been in gunfights and you haven't, so he's right. Well, when I'm clearing my house, I don't have 11 other guys with long guns behind me, right? So it's like, what's your scenario is what it comes back to. So this is the difference. When you're learning a combat sport or a martial art, your scenario is fixed and doesn't deviate. You've never accidentally found yourself in the octagon fighting.
Yes.
If someone said, hey, I got to fight for you Friday night at that Tough Men thing, you've got to agree to do it. And then you go to a rules meeting. And then someone said, like, hey, no biting, no headbutts, no fish hook, wear a mouth guard. Yeah. That's your opponent. This is the weight.
And I know exactly where you're going. And just to emphasize again, Tony and even I believe the same thing. We're not devaluing martial arts training. It's just that there's certain things, and maybe you can even talk about it as the commercialization of martial arts. There are certain things that are not really discussed. And I like to circle back to what you mentioned about how it's kind of like if you are training in a martial art, you're thinking about things from a certain paradigm, and it might not always happen that way in real life. And where a combat sport, you're living under that paradigm that's set parameters, whereas in real life, a deadly encounter, you might be thrown off guard, and if you've never prepared, then things can happen.
Well, that's a great observation, and there's two things I want people to think about there. Several years ago, I was working on a presentation for our Be Your Own Bodyguard course. It's this like 1-day course. How can you teach self-defense in 1 day? Well, people who train a lot misinterpret self-defense with martial arts. So this is a perfect time. So to explain this, the Be Your Own Bodyguard is, do you understand the MAT, the timeline of violence? Do you understand principles of D1, D2, D3, detect, diffuse, defend? Do you know how to use primal gross motor movement? If a guy goes to hit you, your hands come up. It's called the startle flinch. Do you know how to weaponize the flinch? So it's like deploying a biological airbag and creates this buffer between you and the sudden attack. All of these things are every skill I just described there are hardwired. The fear spike is hardwired in you. I don't have to teach you how to feel fear. I don't have to teach you how to push away danger. You already do that. So I can teach somebody in a day because I'm using organic resources that they've already grown and evolved with. It's all natural with them. What we need to teach is how to manage fear, how to think about violence, and then in some cases, how to produce speed and aggression, because some people are just afraid to move.
So just to stop you there, so would you say, because you mentioned something very important, that is a key ingredient missing from traditional self-defense, that management of fear?
100%.
Okay.
That is, and the D2 part. Most martial arts, we talked about this earlier when I had you stand up to demo the headlock. You didn't go, like, what's the difference between a headlock in a cave in Afghanistan, a headlock in an MMA fight, and a headlock just as a van pulled up beside you, the door's open and someone gets in a headlock? One's a kidnapping, one's going to be you're on TV getting your head cut off, and one, you lost the fight. It's an MMA match, you tapped out, and you go back and you watch the film, and you go,
different, sir.
Right? Yeah. So the point being there is, like, you only know one headlock because you looked at the headlock as a physical move, where someone who trains with me, I go, where did this headlock happen? What were the pre-contact cues? Like, would you take out your pistol and shoot somebody in the foot if you're in a headlock? Well, not if you were in a cage fight. You wouldn't even have your gun on you.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, this is really important, is like, and here's the other thing, is the scenario is going to present organic fear that's different. You competed a little bit, right? So you know that your first fight versus your 10th fight, you might have been shitting your pants. A lot of people don't realize, Tyson used to throw up before fights. George St. Pierre has come out and said, the worst day of my life, the scariest day of my life is every day I got to fight. I hate fighting, he says, right? But he rises to the occasion. He manages his fear. In the traditional martial arts, we don't teach fear management other than we say through osmosis. We're just training and sparring. You'll get, as opposed to what exactly are we afraid of? And do we understand the difference between the physiology of fear and the psychology of fear? Because they're huge and nobody talks about that.
Got it. So what I'm picking up thus far, and correct me if I'm wrong, like three kind of major items are missing. One, that pre-fight. We talked a little bit about that, and then, in the future we can circle back to that. It is kind of the whole martial arts versus real self-defense, in the sense that when you are learning a martial art, it's kind of you're operating out of a paradigm. The third would be the management of fear. Would you also say, I guess it's a big part, is the realistic scenarios are not really used?
100%. They're and this isn't intentional. It's accidental. If Shane Faison?
No.
Okay. He's a really good boxer, Thai boxer. He was in here, one of my top guys. He's in the military, but he's also a professional stuntman. So he's a really good actor and, fight stuff. And I had him put in gear, and I said, Shane, what would you do if you had a guy, road rage? Hey, motherfucker. I mean, you're tight. Hey, man, back off. Like, you're lining him up. I said, look, what would your go-to move if he charged, fuck you, and he came at you? I said, do you think you could drill him, just nail him with the jab? He's like, yeah. We put on the high gear. We did the scenario, and he flinched. He flinched, and Adrian was all over him, fucking mauled him, put him on the ground. And Shane was like, holy shit. Now, I preloaded him too.
Yeah.
I said, this is going to happen. It'll be a verbal assault. He's going to encroach you. Just punch him in the face. He's got a high gear helmet on. Just fucking punch him. How easy. The acting, the quality of Adrian's acting hijacked it, right? And it just was like, oh, fuck. Oh. And then if violence is presented so quickly, the perception, imminent becomes immediate, the fear spike can hijack executive function, as I alluded to before.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing that's missing, and you mentioned the commercialization of martial arts, and I make the joke, like, you also said right in the beginning of our talk that you felt like the spear system could and should be taught at every martial arts school. I agree. Well, that's commercializing spear. Can we do that without losing its essence?
Yeah.
And we can. And can we make every martial art instructor a much more, not better, because they're already, if you're not a charlatan, you're a good instructor because you care. But your people are teaching what they know to teach. I used to teach, kick them in the balls. And I still teach people to kick people in the balls, but I don't tell them the myth, the urban legend that I used to tell them. Oh, it'll stop him here.
Yeah.
It'll be like, kick him in the balls, but just understand this. If he knows, he can keep fighting.
Yeah.
Right? So it's, again, more transparency, better quality of information. So yeah, scenarios. Another thing I wanted to throw in, when you use the term, I think, under that parameter or paradigm.
Paradigm.
You turn around at an ATM and you're a boxer, and a guy goes, give me your money. He's got no gun, he's just strong arm. Give me your money. You're a boxer, you go, well, I'm afraid I can't do that. The boxer, is he going to double leg the guy? Or is he going to hit him with a liver shot or an uppercut, right?
Likely going up, yeah,
right.
His fist.
Is now same robbery happens. Give me your money. And this guy is a jiu-jitsu guy. Is he going to do a jump back kick? Is he going to go, I'm going to try something from Taekwondo today, right? But he's going to try to solve the problem from jiu-jitsu. Yes. And so what I want everyone to understand is, when you fall in love with a martial art, you create a romantic relationship with its whole philosophy and all of its promises. And then you also, every one of us falls in love with one or two or three moves.
That's right.
If I said to you, what's your go-to move? You might go, man, I'm really good with a quick jab and a leg kick. I've dropped two guys like that. I know it works. Or it might be a double leg, or it might be an uppercut, right? There's certain things that I always do to get people's attention. What I recognize is this: I have predisposed myself to look for that move. So this is like next level. Remember I said days ago in the beginning of this talk that what if self-awareness was what was connected to situational awareness? And your self-awareness is actually extrapolating and figuring out what to do with head on a swivel. Meaning, if I know that my romantic relationship with certain moves predisposes me to look for a way to get that leg set, or for me to go, I like punching the guy with a straight punch, so I'm going to do that. what I'm actually doing is impacting all other options.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that, Tony. And it goes back to the whole versus thing of martial arts versus self-defense. And again, going back to spear and how it should be integrated, I've always thought about how martial arts is that paradigm, and all those are useful tools. I'm not putting down any system. It's just that I like to think of self-defense as the holistic, the holistic approach, where you're taking all of the little things from different martial arts, taking the powerful, the things that are effective for you, then you combine it. And you're trying to avoid what you just mentioned, where you're now picking those 1, 2, 3 techniques. And if you do so, now you're limiting yourself. Now you really are playing the role of the martial artist. Whereas if you play the role of that person taking from the different martial arts, then you're better prepared. Would you agree?
100%. I have a presentation that I do for martial arts schools. The title of it is "Just Because You Can Doesn't Mean You Should," and I list 4 or 5 world champion martial artists that are all dead now because they let their ego or pride or their martial art go, well, I don't have to put up with this. I'm going to just choke you out. And then the guy comes back with a gun and shoots you in the face. Or Alex Gong, I tell the story where someone hit his car. He was training outside with some students. Some guy hits his car and it just drives off. Well, all the students are standing there. He's sweating wet. I mean, the guy's 4% body fat, world champion Thai boxer. Sees the guy stuck at some traffic, runs up to him. The guy shoots him through the car door. Alex dies. And I explain that. I go like, well, had the guy agreed to fight Alex, that would have been a big mistake.
Yeah.
If he had fought him Thai versus like whatever. But the guy was a coward and he pulled a gun and shot him through the door.
You know, I want to stop you right there because that's a great example and emphasizes a point of self-defense versus martial arts. Again, from the paradigm,
100%.
You already mentioned the ATM. This is a perfect example where if you are thinking like a martial artist and this is missing from self-defense, if you are that martial artist, you are thinking again as, you know, unfortunately what happened with Alex, he's going to go, you know, use his fists against this person. Whereas, let's say the ATM, you use like if a boxer is being robbed, he's going to use his fists. A kickboxer may use fists and legs. But maybe the answer from a self-defense perspective is not to do any of that and
get the hell out of there.
Yeah, there's use some strategy.
So I got to tell you a story. 1986, I'm running one of my seminars. This guy named Larry Joseph sitting there. And I said, okay, scenario's going to happen here. And I had about a 40-foot dash to the front door of my school. And I said, if you can break contact, and as soon as you can break contact, you are to run. If you touch that door, that's a safe haven. That's a police officer. That's the doorman. This is your safe. And so I don't care if you like smack the guy in high gear suit, or we don't have high gear, but like in the role player gear. I don't care if you smack him and break contact and run. And this guy, Larry, puts up his hand. He said, hey, with all due respect, Mr. Blauer, we came here to learn how to fight. I think we all know how to run. And I said, Larry, the fact that you won't even entertain that in a scenario course means your ego and pride are going to keep you in the fight.
Yeah.
We actually, in people who train with us in our protocol, we will run the same scenario where you have multiple use of force options that you need to deploy. So it could be, I could go, hey, I'm going to reach over here. I'm going to go pick up that. I'm going to tell you I'm going to beat your ass. And you could go, oh, well, I would just shoot him if he did that. And they go, well, no, I'll do a side kick. And I'll go, what are the classic options in any use of force continuum? Well, for a citizen, run, talk, fight. You know, it's not as much as like a cop who's got a whole bunch more options. But I'll take the same attack and go, you're going to run here. So that you learn it's okay to run. Now you're going to talk. You learn what's missing from my verbal de-escalation. You're going to close the gap. You realize that was scary. I don't know how to tie up a weapon and jam. And that would lead into, you know, we have a confined space combatives course. How do I tie somebody up and transition to my weapon? You know? But exploring each one of them reveals unconscious bias. What'd you do here? Oh, I'd always do this. Okay. Would you?
Yeah.
Right? So and we come back to true scenario training is experiencing the experience and then doing a transparent AAR. Wow, I really sucked on that one, right? Or I was good over here, I got to do better here. And then going, reverse engineer the training, and then do it again and do it again. And your body and your mind stress inoculate for it. And it's got nothing to do with your martial art. You said, hey, you said, very politely, you're not knocking any martial art. The best martial arts are the ones that produce an environment of fear and a safe way to experience contact. So one of our mottos in our scenario training is trainers should always hurt but should never injure. I can hurt your feelings, you'll get over it. I can hurt your ribs, you'll heal. But if I injure you emotionally or physically, you're less safe in your next encounter.
Yeah.
So training, it should be, the scenario training should have that risk there. Because if you say to me, hey, we're about to do this, is this going to hurt? I go, probably. Fuck. That induces psychological fear. And now you're relying more on primal gross motor as opposed to finesse move. And like that replicates more what's going to go on in the streets. So anyone exploring scenario training, remember these 3 R's: realistic, relevant, and eventually rigorous. And realistic, relevant sounds like semantics, sounds like the same, but they're completely different. I can attack you with antlers from an animal, like cavemen used to do. That's realistic, but it's not relevant, right? Because we're right.
You never know,
right? But I mean, it could happen. I could run at you with a jousting pole and impale you. But when's the last time jousting? That's realistic. People died during that. But we're not living in the Middle Ages. We're not jousting. So realistic and relevant are what's going on in today's world. What do I need to watch out for? I'm traveling here. I'm doing this. What happens in that area of operation?
Got it. So Tony, is there anything else that's top of mind that when you think about self-defense out there in the industry, people teaching, is there, something that is missing? We talked about kind of 4 main things, which are very all-encompassing. There's a lot to talk about, but anything else that's top of mind?
If people started teaching what we call timeline of violence, showing a bigger map, it reveals like a hyper focus on the physical. So that would force you or inspire you to look at the de-escalation, because force must parallel danger, and we have a moral, ethical, legal obligation. That would then, if you're reverse engineering and going, well, I always do this stuff where I'm doing a gun disarm, but this isn't Star Trek. So how did the guy get in there?
Yeah.
Right? So what can I learn or do and think about situational awareness that would improve my safety? Especially because the world is on one hand, so litigious. On the other hand, criminals are so much more brazen than they've ever been. We've gone through defund the police. There's laws every month being passed that make it easier to be a good, like a career criminal. So they don't even care. It's like, oh, you can't even hold me. I'm out. Let's go. So what that would mean for a law-abiding citizen is like, I don't want to be anywhere near any shit. That if you pull a gun in a gunfight, even if everything's right, your life changes.
Yeah.
So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to spot the danger and get the fuck out of there. Unless, and we talk about this, you go, I need to move towards the threat because there's a family member on the other side of that, or I'm a cop and I've got to move towards the danger, or what have you. Or you decide to be that courageous bystander. So, I mean, we talked about so many things, man. Scenario training, but real scientific scenario training, where you're looking at real violence, reverse engineering it, and then exploring how you handled it.
All right, so thanks a lot, Tony, for all the insight. And for our viewers, as you can tell, when it comes to self-defense, it's not just as simple as learning a martial art. There's a lot more to it. We emphasize to our viewers a lot that shooting a gun is just it's a necessary part, but it's not sufficient for all self-defense. You need to do a lot more. You need to learn more. And we already shared a few things that are missing with self-defense as a whole. And I hope you guys found value in that. And this is not the only time we're going to be with Tony. As you can tell, Tony has a lot to offer, a lot to give, a lot of experience. So we are going to have more videos so that you can take that knowledge and use it and, better protect yourselves, your family, be more prepared. Tony, really appreciate the time. I know there was a lot of information. Thanks a lot. And we're looking forward to more videos.
I love it. I had a great time, and I'm excited to meet and get to know your audience and share more insights.
Awesome. If you guys like the video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Leave some comments below, any questions you have for Tony. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. See you guys next time.